It's a typical rainy, cloudy, cold day here in the Pacific Northwest. And I'm out on the brand new Moto Guzzi V7 Sport, sort of breaking her in. I've got like another 625 miles to go before she's broken in. But what does broken in even mean? There's so much controversy and differing opinion on what it means to break in a motorcycle. I don't even know what to do anymore. So let's go for a ride and talk about breaking in a brand new motorcycle. Somewhere in the menu system here, I'm sure, it tells me how many miles I have left until my first service. But after reading the manual, I know the first service is about 900 miles. So I've got 273 miles on the bike so far. In that 273 miles, I've been pretty gentle on the old Moto Guzzi here. I haven't, redlined it or anything like that. I've barely ever gone above 4,500 RPM, which is the recommendation in the manual. I haven't done any, major emergency braking that I didn't need to do, and I haven't run the bike at a consistent RPM for any length of time. I've also watched about 35 million videos on how to break a motorcycle in, and there are, let's just say, a lot of varying opinions on what's the best way. But from my research, the one thing that I am noticing is that most people, especially people who I know and respect, are suggesting that maybe the break-in period is kind of bullshit. And I also get those comments a lot when I make a video about getting a new bike and saying that I'm in the break-in period and taking it easy. I inevitably get the comments, just ride it, don't worry about it. I get that, and to a certain point, I actually totally agree with it. And so while I'd like to hop on the bike and just ride it like I normally would, I just can't bring myself to do it. When I was a kid, my brother had snowmobiles, and I remember one time he had this new snowmobile, and his only rule was, don't ride it at a constant RPM, keep varying the throttle. Now, I was probably 10 years old, 11 years old. I had no idea what any of that meant. But I knew how to vary the throttle, and that's what I did. I didn't really question why I wasn't supposed to just keep it at a certain speed and RPM and be done with it. I just did it, because that's what I was told. Well, I'm older now, and I'm less likely to just do what I'm told. However, my conundrum is this. You've seen me go through a bunch of bikes on this channel, and a lot of those bikes I never really intended to keep as my forever bike or whatever. But this Moto Guzzi I have here, the brand new 2026 Moto Guzzi V7 Sport, this is a bike that I hope to have for a very, very long time. And so I figure, you know what, 900 miles of kind of babying the thing doesn't really make a difference in the scheme of owning this bike for potentially 50, 60, 70,000 miles, maybe more. What's 900 miles in the very beginning? The problem comes that a lot of advice I hear states that babying the bike in the first 900 miles or whatever the recommended break-in period is actually not good for the bike. It's actually detrimental. A lot of people suggest you want to sort of start like this, and go and get the RPMs up and then let it sort of just settle back down like this. And keep doing that over and over, and then, give the bike a break to cool off and all that, and then repeat the process. Other people will say, the best thing to do is take the bike into, a mountain twisty road where you're going to be varying the throttle a lot. You're going to be putting load on the engine and the brakes, because the engine isn't the only part that needs to break in, right? The brakes need to bed. The cams need to do cammy things, and the clutch needs to do clutchy things, and all that stuff comes, with time and use. And so what I do in a situation like this, and especially on this bike, which I'm really trying to be meticulous about, is take a bunch of different advice from different people and meld it together into my own little how to break in a motorcycle plan. And for me, it goes something like this. First and foremost, because my brother told me 42 2 years ago or whatever it was to vary the RPMs and not keep it at a consistent RPM over any length of time when you're breaking the bike in, I do that. I don't really use cruise control during break-in. I do my best to vary my speed, and if I'm on a highway and I can't vary my speed, I'll drop down a gear, I'll drop up a gear just to keep things moving, you know what I'm saying? So I do follow that rule mostly for nostalgic reasons. Number 2, as far as keeping it under a certain rev limit, on this bike it's 4,500 RPMs as suggested by the user manual. Well, yes and no. On the Himalayan, for example, it was almost impossible to keep that bike in the recommended RPM range because if I did, I would never have gotten onto the driveway. On this bike, 4,500 RPM is rather respectable, actually. It's not too far off of what I would normally be riding this bike at. However, there are definitely circumstances when you need to get that RPM up above 4,500, and I have no problem doing that. I know this engine is a giant beefcake. It's built to last. I don't think taking it up to 5,000, 5,500 RPM or whatever during its initial break-in is really going to hurt anything. And in fact, according to a lot of people, like I said, it's actually a good thing. So I don't mind revving it out a little bit. The problem comes in this. And this is where my paranoia really sets in. Let's just say I did have a warranty claim on this bike during my first 900 miles, or even after, right? And I take it to the shop, and the shop calls Piaggio, and Piaggio says, well, plug this thing into the bike and make sure this dude didn't rev the hell out of it during its initial break-in period. I gotta be honest, I don't even know if that technology exists. I don't know if there's an onboard computer recording how fast you're revving out your bike during the initial break-in period, but I know cars have stuff like that. I can't imagine that a motorcycle doesn't have some sort of thing in it, or I mean, it seems pretty obvious. If I were a motorcycle manufacturer and I were trying to cut down on warranty claims, I'd probably put something like that in a motorcycle and say, hey, you revved the tits off of this bike during its initial break-in period, and now you're coming back saying it's burning oil. That's on you. But I don't make motorcycles. I just ride them. So while I'd say I'm not babying the bike during its initial break-in period, I'm not wringing its neck either. I don't want to baby it because I really do think that you want to ride it as close to real-world conditions like you would ride it in any normal situation as you can, because I think that's the proper way to break in a motorcycle with limits. Ride it like you're normally going to ride it, but, you know, have some limits. Definitely vary the RPM. Don't redline the goddamn thing in its first 900 miles. Although, I did recently see a video, I can't remember if it was Fortnite or Revzilla, where they just run the living shit out of an engine and compared it to an engine that wasn't revved to within an inch of its life. And the differences between them after initial break-in period were negligible. So, I don't know. It's all personal, right? I'll tell you, though. I'm not even in sport mode right now because it's raining and I'm trying to be careful. This has been the hardest break-in period that I've ever gone through with the motorcycle. This has been the hardest 900 miles by far, and I'm only at 278 miles. Because, and I'll tell you why, this bike is a total sleeper. When you put it in sport mode, and even when you're not in sport mode, and you twist the throttle, it has a surprising amount of torque. It is astonishingly fast for what it is, or quick, let's say. I don't know off the top of my head what the numbers are because I never care about stuff like that. I'm totally just about the feel of it, right? And this bike, check this out, like, oh, good Lord. Okay, so I just broke my own rule, and, you know, but it's hard not to. It's what I'm saying. It's so hard not to rev this thing out and ride it like it's supposed to be ridden. And so I guess in some funny way, you know, 900 miles of having to ride like this is going to make me appreciate the day I take it into the shop, have its first service done, get the keys handed back to me, and be told, okay, ride it like you stole it. Because I'm going to take the keys, I'm going to put them in the ignition, I'm going to press the starter button, and this thing's going to come awake, and I'm going to ride it like a crazy person for a couple of miles, and then I'm going to tone that shit down because I'm too old. I don't know. This is my second Moto Guzzi. The first one, I had for about 10,000 miles. This one I've only had for 280 miles. So I'm not an expert, but I know what a Moto Guzzi feels like now. And there's just something about it, man. I don't know what it is. Oh, yeah. And it's killing me. It's killing me not to run this bike to its full potential. And it's also killing me to know that I probably couldn't. It wouldn't make any difference. I'm caught between a rock and awesome Moto Guzzi that I want to just ride like a jet fighter. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'll tell you, the other thing about the braking period that's killing me with this bike is the weather's been absolutely miserable. And not only does it make riding unpleasant like today where it's 46 degrees and raining and just awful, and I hate life, and I gotta clean my lens. There we go. Woo. I don't want this bike's initial impression of the world to be it's just cold and gray and shitty out all the time. I just don't want to do that to this bike. Oh no! Well, I guess we'll sit here and talk for a while. I want to keep this bike pretty pristine. I don't want it to get all rusty and corroded and stuff like that. I don't mind doing that to the Himalayan because that's what the Himalayan was built for, and plus the Himalayan is half the cost of this bike. But this is my good weather journey bike. Well, that was uneventful. Whereas the Himalayan is my go anywhere, do anything, in any type of condition bike. And so, if you know me, the fact that I only have 280 miles on this bike so far and I've had it for over a week, normally it would have already been in for its first service and I'd have my first long adventure down on it already. But unfortunately, the weather is just not cooperating. All right, let's give it a little bit and see what happens. Oh yeah, let's put it in sport mode. Ah, it's so good. It's so good. All right, let's get back to reality here. Anyway, that's where I'm at. 280 something miles in on the Guzzi. I've got another 600 miles or so to go before this thing is fully broken in and has its first service. And I feel like a caged animal. And I'm doing it to myself, I know, because I know in reality it probably really doesn't make any difference whatsoever how you break in a motorcycle as long as you follow a couple of basic rules. But I just can't do it. I can't bring myself to do it. This is my baby and I don't want to break her. I'm curious to know from folks, either newcomers to motorcycling or folks who have been doing this for years and years and years. What is your philosophy on breaking in a brand new motorcycle? Do you just rev the balls off of it and call it a day? Or do you follow the manufacturer's recommendations to a T? Let me know in the comments. I always read your comments and I love hearing from y'all, so let me know. And also, you should check out this video over here because I'm told you're really gonna like it. Like and subscribe. That stuff really helps the channel, and I'll catch you on the next one.